So, all right, yeah, so if you don't know any terms, like that's where you should focus for this class, is just like memorize the terms, because you can pass this exam just by memorizing terms. So this first one, I'm just gonna kind of cut through the projections. This is the Goode Homolosine projection. It's like equal area. So the thing about projections is that every map is distorted, and that's an issue, right? Like no map is exactly correct. You've got every type of map is distorting something. So this one is specifically distorting shape, right? Like this is not necessarily what all the continents look like. It's the shape is not exactly right. But this one breaks up the globe into the equal continents. It's trying to space out the distortion equally so that at least it's trying to keep like the size and the amount of area intact, but the shape is distorted. So that's one type of projection. All right, another one we've got is, so for those of you asking how long does this last, this will only, I'm gonna start the Kahoot in probably like 10 minutes, okay? And hopefully it's not frozen. And if it's frozen for you, then I would say to try refreshing. So, all right, Mercator Projection. The Mercator Projection is like one of the most common types, and this is distorted by shape and size. Right, so this is exaggerating landforms, and it's showing it's distorting the size. It's trying to it's easier to like travel like by sea using a map like this, but it's distorting the actual sizes of the continents, right? So for example, if you look at Greenland on the top here, let me just go down. If you look at Greenland right here, Greenland looks massive on this map. It looks almost the same size as Africa below it. But Greenland and Africa are nowhere near the actual same sizes. And so it really distorts it, you know, the top and the bottom especially. It's like stretching it. And so that's the problem here with Mercator. And this is a common one though. All right, someone had said this one before, Azimuthal, it's tough. So this one is showing you land from like different perspectives on the globe. It is going to distort distance and shape, right? Because you're looking at it from like the top. And so you can't really tell distance as much there, and you can't really tell the shapes entirely. It's distorted quite a bit. Okay, on this one, this is called the Lambert Conic projection. And this one is distorting direction, but maintains accurate distance. And so for all of you guys that are here as a like reward for you for sticking around, I'm gonna email you all the slides for this. Okay, so stick around, pay attention to all the things we're kind of going through. All these things are kind of fair game for coming up on an exam. So I will share with you these slides. So why would someone use the Lambert Conic projection? This is gonna distort direction, but it maintains accurate distance, right? So it makes it easier to use that. All these projections are used for different reasons, and it kind of depends on, you know, I don't know, like what you need for. The way I'm going to share it with you is through your email. So the email that you use to register for this, I will email you the slides. All right, so we got two more projections. The Mollweide Projection. This one is combining some of the other versions. It's still distorted, right? You still have distortions on the angles and the shapes, just in terms of like where things are, but it's trying to show it in a little bit more like flat. So the last one is this Robinson projection. This one probably has the least amount of distortions, like the least amount of like dramatic distortions, right? Like look at the size difference. Like remember the last one we saw? You've got Greenland up here that looks like the size of Greenland. And then you've got Africa that looks like the size of Africa. And there is distortions in everything. It's distorted in size and shape and distance, but it's better than the other ones. So this is your Robinson projection. All right, let's talk about other types of maps. So there are so many different ways that you can see that we can just like organize information on a map. So in this type of map, this is called a flow line map. You'll see this one a lot of times with migration. This is like you know, you can see like arrows of just kind of where people are going. So this is a good one to use if you are trying to track like movement of people. This is flow line migration. All right, Choropleth. This one you see a lot on, you know, if you look up like top 50 maps that you've never seen before kind of thing. Essentially what it's doing is it assigns different colors or different symbols to different pieces of information, and then it allows you to like see things like based on that, right? So it's not just showing you a map of the United States. This is showing you, what is it showing you? Pop, who in the country says pop, soda, or Coke, right, of soft drinks. And so the red is, guessing red is Coke, the brown is soda, the blue is pop. So like, what do you say? So if you're talking about, you know, a soda, what do you call it? Do you call it pop, soda, or Coke? Yeah, there you go. So a lot of you guys call it soda. A few call it, one calls it diabetes. That's funny. Bubbly. Yeah, so, right. So like people in the South call it Coke, most likely because the like Coca-Cola factories are in the South. And so it just kind of gets called, everything gets called Coke. People anywhere in the like in New England, right in the middle of like near St. Louis, and on the West Coast, they call it soda. And then all the top, the blue is all calling it pop, right? That's big in like the Midwest. Voting maps don't quite fall on this one. They can. So a voting map could look like this. It could show you, yeah, it could show you like just red and blue, and it could show you like a county version of like who in you know, which county voted for, you know, Democrat, or which county voted Republican. Then it could show you red versus blue. This is Choropleth. This one is oftentimes used primarily for political purposes. This is showing you, just kind of like I said, like it's showing you red versus blue and the states, but it's also showing you another piece of information. It's showing you how big each state is, how many like electoral votes each state is actually worth, right? So you can see that like Oregon, for example, is now like smushed. So Oregon went blue in 2016, but it's not worth as many electoral votes as California or as New York, right? Or you can see Florida and Texas are much bigger, but you know, the Dakotas are tiny. So this is showing you a couple of different pieces of information. It's showing you the United States, it's showing you who voted for what, and it's showing you how those things are related to each other. So this is Cartogram. Yes, I can see the chat. I'm trying not to look at it because it like confuses me when I look over there, and there's just so many things. All right, so small scale and large scale map, these can get confusing because they're kind of the opposite of what they're called. So a small scale map shows a large area of land. So that it literally means like the scale on the map is like small, right? So it might be like, it's just small, like you're zoomed out. Whereas a large scale map, you're zoomed in, right? This is showing a small area of land. So just kind of like I told you, this is all about memorizing, right? So if you can just memorize large scale map is a small area, small scale map is a large area. It's just kind of opposite. All right, let's keep going. Other types of map. Okay, so you've got physical map, right? So a physical map is going to show you geographic features, landforms, right? It's going to show you mountains and where like flat areas are. A political map is specifically showing you boundaries. It's showing you states. It's showing you countries, right? So this is not showing you where the Rocky Mountains are, but it's showing you where Colorado is. All of these are thematic maps, right? So instead of just using like projections, you can use, all of these are thematic. These are different types of thematic maps. Okay, this one is called proportional symbol map. Yeah, so look, we're just about ready for the Kahoot. So proportional symbol map is, it's showing you two pieces of information again. So this map is specifically showing you the percentage of the population as a percent of the total population. So for example, the one on California, the blue is like non-Hispanic and the red is Hispanic. So you can see based on this, it's it's not just showing you like how many like Hispanic people live in each state. It's showing you as it relates to the population of the state, how many are there. So you can see that in California and Texas, it's a fairly large percentage of the population there. So it changes, and it's showing you that based on like the size of the like size of the little pie chart, right? So like the bigger the pie chart, the more Hispanic population there is. And so that's just kind of like an interesting, I don't know, it's a way to look at a couple different pieces of information. This one is one of my favorite ones because this one can show you so much information in a small amount of time. So this one is called a dot distribution map. This is actually a map of the Bay Area. This right here is like the San Francisco Peninsula. This is Oakland. Up here is Berkeley. And so you can see this is, you're not looking at this to look at the physical or political lines. So it's not going to show you the lines of the city. What it is showing you is the race distribution within the Bay Area. So on this, you've got all the red dots are referring to white populations, blue dots are referring to Black, green is Asian, orange is Latino. And so when you look at this, you can actually see these like clusters, right? You can see that these neighborhoods are fairly segregated in a lot of places, and then in some places are not. And so, this whole section right here is West Oakland. West Oakland is predominantly Black. This whole section right here is like Fruitvale and more of like East Oakland, and this is orange. This is predominantly Latino. So you can kind of see just like a difference in terms of, like where people live, but also a different piece of information based on that. So this is just dot distribution. All right, this one is called Isoline. This is mostly used for climate. So, when you see this one, you should think of like the Weather Channel, right? When you can see different like zones of temperature, because it's showing you that like there's some temperatures that are, warm, and some temperatures it's getting cooler as you go. So that's Isoline. And then the last type of map here is topographic. Topographic maps you really only use also for, it's showing elevation. So this is a really good map to measure, a mountain and just like how big the elevation is. All right, y'all. So one last thing to define before we jump into this Kahoot is regions. There's 3 types of regions. And so what do we talk about when we say the word region? It's basically an area that's defined by one or more characteristics. So, there's something about it that is defining it. It could be a formal region. That would be a state or a country, right? So the region that I'm in Maine, I'm in, New England. It's easily defined. You know where it starts and where it ends. There isn't like too much, there could be conflict over those boundaries, but at least we know where that boundary is. Another one is functional. This is like some kind of central node. Something is functioning to keep us in that region. And so this could be like subway systems. This could be newspaper distributions, radio stations, anything like that. Things that are, connecting people in terms of like how far you are to that thing, right? Like radio stations, like the further away you get from a radio station, the less it works. So you start to listen to a different one, right? You change the radio stations in terms of where you are. Those are functional. You're not going to find a line of where that stops. It's just like where I can stop hearing that radio. And the last one is a perception / like vernacular region. And this is basically like you live in a place that like it's part of your cultural identity. You definitely can't define where that line actually is. And there isn't really too much, like physically creating these. And so, for example, like the South, right? Like what defines the South as the South is debatable. And so in this case, it is, it's vernacular.